Good morning, Middle Georgia, and welcome to Your Money. Sorry we don't have any intro music today. There's something wrong with the switchboard. Not the operator, Neil, just the switchboard. We are Randy and Sherri Goss with Rosenberg Financial Group, and as financial advisors, the main thing that we do is provide retirement planning and advice for our clients' investment accounts. And if you're looking for a financial advisor, please contact our office to set up your complimentary consultation. Our office number is 478-922-8100, and we have offices in Macon and Warner Robins for your convenience. To find out more about us, visit our website, retirerelax.com, where you can read a number of special reports and listen to past radio show broadcasts, and you can sign up to receive our digital feeds, which provide great information on various subjects in a short video format. We also offer free seminars to the community, so if you're a member of our church or a civic organization and you're looking for a guest speaker, contact us, and we'll get you in touch with Sherri. And if you'd like to call into the show today, and hopefully that phone is working, it is 478-742-0940, or you can send me an email, as always, to randy@rfmoney.com, and we'll cover your question in a future broadcast. So
is your headset working?
Barely.
Mine is not at all.
No?
I have no sound.
Is it plugged in?
Yes.
On both ends?
Yes.
Okay.
Whatever.
Okay.
Anyway.
Oh, wait, you're going to talk about another seminar.
So the Cybersecurity Awareness Forum of 2023 that Houston Healthcare is putting on is November 16th at 6:30 p.m. at the Carrie Martin Conference Center. If you need a copy of the flyer, just email me, Sherri, Sherri, @rfmoney.com, and I will forward the flyer to you so that you can go and invite your friends.
And as y'all heard just right before we got on the show, this weekend is you need to set your clocks back. So Sunday evening, don't forget to roll it back an hour. And so everyone can get up a little more bleary-eyed on Monday morning. Anyway, Veterans Day is next Saturday, so make sure, if you're wanting a free meal, if you're a veteran, you can go to Bonefish Grill, Carrabba's, Chicken
There's
Salad.
There's a ton of deals out there.
There's a lot of them out there. But anyway, you can go to military.com to learn more as the hours and freebies differ by different locations.
And some of them are just giving out certificates that you can use later.
Oh, that's
you don't
nice.
even have to go on that day.
Yeah.
So you could eat free all day long and then get certificates to eat free on other days. If you really want to make a deal out of this.
As they say, wow, what a deal.
So the Fed meeting Wednesday. Powell acknowledged in his press conference Wednesday that when it comes to rate hikes, the central bank is probably close to the end of the cycle. A potential end to rate hikes has fueled a debate on whether the Fed should also consider winding down the process of allowing just shy of $100 billion a month in Treasury and mortgage bonds it owns to mature and not be replaced. This caused the market to go up, and the Dow had the best week of the year.
It was good to see green for a week for a change.
For a change. Productivity in the U.S. hits a 3-year high. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, U.S. productivity rose at a 4.7% annualized rate in the third quarter. This is a gain of nearly 1 percentage point from the previous quarter's 3.6% rate. It's also the largest advance in productivity in nearly 3 years. Plus, unit labor costs, a measure of what businesses pay employees for 1 unit of output, it decreased by 0.8%, the first downward movement since late 2022. The consecutive gains in productivity and the decrease in labor costs indicate businesses are working to improve efficiency in the face of worsening economic conditions. I don't see this at Walmart. When I go to Walmart, I see people all these employees just standing around. I don't know how they're paying all these people to not do much of anything. It's just weird. You never go to Walmart, do you?
I do, but I don't think I see a bunch of people just standing around doing nothing.
We need to zoom through the whole store. Anyways, oil could surge up to a record $157 a barrel if the Middle East conflict broadens and creates a large disruption in the markets, the World Bank has warned. The grim forecast is part of the institution's commodity markets outlook, where it lays out 3 risk scenarios amid the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas and the continuing conflict in Ukraine. In a large disruption scenario, the global oil supply would fall by 6 to 8 million barrels a day. That would drive prices up to 56% to 75% initially, to between $140 and $157 a barrel, and we're still not pumping in this country.
I know, it just drives me insane to see that we have all this, the capability right here.
We have so much capability.
The Permian Basin right here in the middle of America.
The Alaska thing that Biden shut down, to me, is criminal, because we could be easily, again, the #1 producer in the entire world.
Yeah, and so with that, now the U.S. government is contemplating releasing up to another 180 million barrels of oil from its emergency supplies People familiar with the matter told Reuters, it's a desperate bid to lower fuel prices and curb inflation. If the White House follows through on the plan, it would represent the largest release from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve in its nearly 50-year history, and mark the third time in the past 6 months that the government has tapped into the emergency supplies. The 180 million barrels of oil reportedly set to be accessed is equivalent to approximately 2 days of global demand, and will be drawn out gradually over several months, with some sources saying that the plan is to tap into as much as 1 million barrels of oil per day.
So I saw this too and checked the charts to see where the SPR reserves were as of Thursday, and found that they are at 351 million barrels of a capacity of 714. So we're just about a half 0.5%, 50% full in our strategic reserve. Yep. Or over half empty, depending on which way you want to look at it. The Biden administration officials previously stated they would look to purchase replenishment of oil when the per barrel price dropped to the $67 to $72 range.
Boy, they missed that boat.
They missed the boat on that.
Well, President Biden's intentions were revealed a day before the International Energy Agency member countries are due to meet to discuss and decide on a collective oil release aimed at cooling global crude prices that hit a 14-year high in March after Russia invaded Ukraine, and shortly before the OPEC refused to abide by requests from the West to significantly ramp up their supply.
So I tried to find details about this, and I couldn't find it anywhere because I wanted to really understand the IEA and what they were doing, but oh well.
Well, Goldman Sachs, in a research note sent to its clients, claimed releasing 180 million barrels of oil over 6 months will help the markets rebalance this year, but not resolve the structural supply deficit caused by cutting Russia out of the picture. Oil prices have rocketed since Putin ordered his country to invade Ukraine in late February, and governments around the world responded by hitting Russia, the second biggest oil exporter, with hefty sanctions. Subsequent supply concerns drove Brent crude futures up about $139 per barrel in March, the highest level since 2008. Other than drawing more barrels from its own reserve and counting on the IEA members to follow suit, the U.S. has been trying to convince Saudi Arabia, the biggest oil exporter in the world, and other big OPEC producers to sharply ramp up supplies and take the heat out of the prices. However, OPEC has been refusing to budge, confirming that it will increase supply by a modest 432,000 barrels per day in May and not announce more. President Biden is desperate to lower fuel prices as it's contributed to high inflation and hurt his administration's approval rating ahead of the elections. High oil prices harm Americans in many ways, affecting, among other things, driving costs and the amount paid to heat people's homes. So, I mean, yeah, it's a bad thing right now, but not a lot they can do about it. But I don't agree with drawing down our SPR.
No, I don't at all. I think it's idiotic. They need to open that whole Alaska.
Especially when they shipped oil to China last year.
Very good. So shoppers are complaining Halloween candy inflation is downright frightful. So were you spooked by the high price of Halloween candy this year? For the second year in a row, U.S. shoppers saw double-digit inflation in the candy aisle. Candy and gum prices are up on average of 13% this month compared to last October, and that's more than double the 6% increase in all grocery prices, according to Data Assembly, a retail price tracker. That's on top of a 14% increase in candy and gum over last year. The price of candy has got to be outrageous. This year, consumers cut back on the amount they bought or bought store brands and simply cut the front port lights out when they ran out of candy on Halloween. Weather is the main culprit. So you think that they're just gouging you? There is actually another reason.
There's a reason.
Weather is the main culprit for the higher prices. Cocoa prices are trending at a 44-year high after heavy rains in West Africa caused limited production in the season that began last fall. Now, El Nino conditions are making the region drier and likely to linger well into the spring. Experts say there may be no price relief in sight, at least through the first half of 2024, due to severe drought in places like the Ivory Coast, which produces around 40% of the world's cocoa. Meanwhile, global sugar prices are at a 12-year high. India, the world's second-largest sugar producer after Brazil, recently banned sugar exports for the first time in 7 years after monsoon rains hurt the upcoming harvest. Thailand's output is also down. These costs, combined with increases for labor, packaging, and ingredients like peanuts, are pushing prices of all candy way up. So maybe this is a sign you should eat a carrot instead of candy. Carrot prices are coming down.
That's right.
The organic ones are dirt cheap. Buy a giant bag of Kroger, and every time you want a piece of candy, eat a carrot.
And it doesn't leave any sticky residue on your fingers.
Right.
You know? So anyway, this last week was a very big legal settlement, not a settlement, but a ruling. Anyway, it came against the National Realtors Association. Zillow Group, Inc., and other real estate stocks plunged after a Missouri jury struck a fresh blow against the battered industry, finding the National Association of Realtors colluded to maintain high brokerage commissions. The jury awarded nearly $1.8 billion in damages in the case, one of several recent lawsuits concerning how real estate agents are paid. The Justice Department is also scrutinizing the commission-sharing system, which typically puts home sellers on the hook for 5 to 6% of the sales price, split between the agent and the representative for the buyer. In a worst-case scenario for the industry, the federal government could seek to ban sharing of commissions, which would upend how real estate agents have done business for decades.
So will it change the amount, or will it just change how it's billed? Now it comes off the seller's side, and it's split between the listing agent and the selling agent. If this stands, it may be half the commission from the seller, and the buyer would need to come up with the other half of the commission, which will further frustrate potential buyers. And so here's my just 2 cents on this thing. The last time we bought a house, yeah, we had a realtor. She showed us a few houses, but now that you can go on Zillow and you can look at everything yourself and drive by and make an appointment direct, I'm really agreeing with discounting. There needs to be some more fair way to do this.
Well, I'll say, people like us, we've been around the real estate market for a long, long time. And we could probably do it without a realtor. But,
yes,
like we talked about last week when it comes to, like, even our insurance company, having the professional on the back end sometimes is really a nice thing to be able to pick up the phone and call somebody. But think about the people out there who have never dealt in real estate before. It's a maze to get through. And those realtors,
that's true.
They do a good job. And I'm a little concerned that if the National Association of Realtors takes a hit and then it fractures the industry, what is it going to open up the consumer to? Because they have high standards in the NAR. Because I was a realtor once, and I know the training we have to go through and the continued education, and I'm just concerned they can change things, but don't run them into bankruptcy. That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Okay.
Anyway, shares of Zillow fell 6.9% Tuesday, the biggest decline since June of 2022. While the company doesn't rely on commissions income directly, its core business is selling marketing service to buyers agents. The stock has dropped more than 80% from its peak in 2021 when it was riding the pandemic housing boom. 2 other brokerages, Remax and Anywhere Real Estate, settled with a plaintiff earlier this year, agreeing to pay $55 million and $83.5 million respectively, and no longer require agents to belong to the National Association of Realtors. In a separate statement, Home Services and NAR said that they intend to appeal, while Keller Williams, another big realty firm, said they would also consider that option. Today's decision means that buyers will face even more obstacles in an already challenging real estate market, and sellers will have a harder time realizing the values of their homes, according to Home Services. It could also force home buyers to forego professional help during what is likely the most complex and consequential financial transactions they'll make in their entire lifetime.
Yeah, so I agree. I'm not sure that I like this. There's a lot of good that realtors provide, and if they're not filling this space with standards like the NAR provides, then I would be cautious of who fills that void.
Yeah. In addition to the Missouri case, plaintiffs in Illinois, where a trial is expected to start early next year, are seeking as much as $40 billion in another private class action lawsuit against NAR. So these sums are just so punitive. It saddens me to see that we've got to the point where we can't just let's go fix this thing and make it better. I do agree that there's some technology out there that makes it maybe not as laborsome on the realtors. So maybe there's some room for that commission. I don't know, but I know there's a lot of work that goes into it. Think of all the gas, the vehicles, and it's just a lot of work and a lot of expense that goes into it up front.
So, the national debt is finally a real-world problem. For years, budget hawks warned about the damaging effects of the mushrooming national debt, which now totals more than $33 trillion, but they had to speculate about how a debt crisis would materialize because it was only theoretical. We're now beginning to see the real-life effects of an unsustainable federal debt load to finance trillions of dollars in spending beyond what incoming revenue can support. The U.S. Treasury is now issuing more debt in the form of Treasury securities than global financial markets can readily absorb. That forces the borrower, the U.S. government, to pay higher interest rates, which in turn pushes up borrowing costs for consumers and businesses in much of the Western world. It's not yet a crisis in the sense of an unavoidable calamity that will wreck careers and trash living standards, but the excessive debt of the United States now impacts anybody who takes out a loan or invests in stocks. Once a routine and unexciting part of the market, debt issuance by the Treasury is now a hot Wall Street topic as investors plot how to avoid losses or capture profits from this new source of volatility.
And the annual U.S. budget deficit hit $2 trillion in fiscal year 2023, which ended in September. That was a big jump from the $1.4 trillion deficit in 2022. In theory, the annual deficit should be shrinking since the massive amounts of COVID stimulus spending in 2020 and 2021 have wound down and the overall economy has been solid. Yet the trend is worsening rather than improving due largely to the decades of financial negligence by both the Democrats and the Republicans. What really got investors' attention during the recent months wasn't the 2023 deficit figure, but a July 31st announcement by the Treasury that it planned to borrow $1 trillion in the third quarter alone, $274 billion more than its estimate from just 2 months earlier. The government needed the extra financing because tax receipts were coming in lower than expected while outflows were higher. Well, stop spending. I mean,
right.
My goodness, how hard is this?
Right. Since then, 10-year Treasury rates have risen by nearly a full percentage point. The Federal Reserve has been raising short-term rates to combat inflation, which has some effect on longer-term rates, such as the 10-year. Most economists don't think higher rates caused by excessive federal borrowing are likely on their own to cause a recession, but they're pushing up borrowing costs across the board for businesses and consumers alike. Surging rates also make stocks less appealing since the return on bonds goes higher and bonds are an alternative to stocks. That is surely a factor in the 9% drop in the S&P 500 since July when the S&P peaked for the year. And
the Democrats and the Republicans blame each other, of course, for the nation's soaring debt, but both parties are responsible. The last year the U.S. ran a surplus was 2001 as Democrat President Bill Clinton was leading office. Since then, costly wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, the Great Recession stimulus spending, and the Trump tax cuts of 2017 consequently pushed the debt higher. After COVID hit in 2020, Congress passed more than $5 trillion in stimulus spending and bills signed by both President Trump and then President Biden. That's basically how we got from $6 trillion in national debt in 2001 to a $33 trillion debt in 2023. Good morning. You're on the air with Sherri and Randy.
Good morning.
Good morning. How you?
Hey, Robin. How are you?
All right. This is Robin from Perry, Georgia.
How's things in Perry?
About 2 weeks ago, I called when you always had this broadcast on your new person that you have with you.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, they wouldn't let me in because I guess you mentioned earlier there's a recorded
show.
Right.
Well, but anyway, I appreciate you all being there. And just one or two things I'm just going to hit on, then I'm going to get off there.
Right.
You mentioned about the national debt.
It's terrible.
It is too, but the problem is really not a problem, but then it is a problem because, like I said, Social Security is, especially for people like myself who is considered a baby boomer. And what is happening when we was growing up and we was paying money to the Social Security as far as helping the other elderly have money. But now it's time for us to retire, and that become a part of the national debt because that's what the government owed us. We see instead of having an individual account for the elderly.
And Robin, if you a couple of weeks ago we talked about this, and it's going to come around real soon, like by 2033, that we're not going to have enough money to pay 100% of the Social Security benefits that they are now telling you that you are entitled to, and then you're only going to get 80%, and that's how it's going to roll. So our national debt has a big deal in how this nation is going to go forward.
And the money they've thrown around has become the largest line item ever in the history of this country.
And we're paying interest on that all the time. It's debt, and we have to pay interest.
And I don't know what they're going to cut to make this fix.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how they can cut military spending, and we're just throwing money around the world like drunken sailors right now.
Yeah, and if you look, I mean, every time I turn around, the current administration is like $86 billion for this, $90 billion for that, $140 that for this. It's
deficit spending.
It's crazy.
So.
Right. I want to not interrupt you, but as far as you saying with the national debt, as for with the Social Security, what's going to have to happen is that the younger people now, I know they don't want to work because they were saying that it's not our fault that the United States got themselves into this deficit, but they are going to have to start working more and start paying into the system. And I know one thing the Republicans do not like as far as raising taxes, because I hate to say it, the billionaires, they don't pay too much of tax no way. And well, one of the things I would like to
hang on one second, Robert. One of the things you're looking at is not having, looking down the road, is that the younger people won't be paying into the current Social Security system. They'll be, they're looking at having them pay into more, like a 401k that would be in their name. So the Social Security system is going to have to remain solvent on its own, is what it sounds like. We just
have to bump out the years of the age of when people can get on it.
Yeah.
Like 35-year-olds don't even think it's going to be around anyways, so bump them up by 5 years and it fixes the entire situation.
Or at least pushes it down the road a little bit longer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Let me also mention, on this coming Tuesday is going to be election as far as the House and County Board of Education. They're going to devote to extend the 1% the SPLOSH, the Special Purpose Local Option Sales Tax. And this is basically saying that you want to give the House and County Board of Education and another blank check. And in other words, they just spend money how they want to spend. So that's up to the voters.
How do you feel about it, Robin?
Well, I'm going to tell you, I voted no the first time it was presented, and I voted no the other day on the early voting. So I don't think that you need to give the House and County Board of Education a blank check. And this is basically saying that they can just do whatever they want to do with the money. I mean, not to say that I've been in the education field for over 48 years, and I see what the Board of Education is doing with the money, and this is just giving them a blank check.
So usually those SPLOST have goals set up. So there's nothing like that set up for this SPLOST?
Well, that's what they're saying there, because like I said, this is what they did at the school in Perry, Houston High School, the black school, they spent money to rebuild it. They spent millions of dollars to give to, as far as rebuilding it. And then they changed from Perry Middle School. It was a middle school, and then they changed it to the Perry Primary School. I think Houston County, the first school system to start with primary school. Mm-hmm. And then after spending all of that money with the SPLOSH money into improving the school, they used some of that same SPLOSH money to tear the school down, which makes no kind of sense. But they're saying that, well, because they had lead in the water. But it wasn't, like I said, what I was saying, just give it. That's why I voted against it the first time. And this is what they want to do now, get another check as far as a blank check to do other things like that, which I consider that was terrible. Houston High School is not around today. It's a historical black school, but they use some of that same money to improve it, millions of dollars, and then they use not thousands of dollars to tear it down, which makes no kind of sense whatsoever.
Well, Robin, those were two great topics this morning. We appreciate it.
All right, and one other thing as far as the Ukraine, we got to continue funding that because if we let Putin win, then he's going to try to go to other countries. So we got to keep funding that money to Ukraine and also to Israel because Israel is very important, and this is what Hamas is doing. They're saying here now they're going to bomb Israel, but then now they want to ceasefire. Because they saying that it makes no sense as for them to lose the war, in other words. So we need to fund both of those, Ukraine and Israel, and to stop people like Hamas. And I'm going to let you go, all right? And
Thank you, Robin.
Don't forget that Fort Valley State going to be playing Auburn State.
And yet there's more.
This is the last game there, so we want you to come on to the Fountain City class. Is going to start 2 o'clock in Columbus. We'll talk to you later.
Take care.
Right. Have a great day.
Bye. Those were great topics. They really were. So good job, Robin. So back to...
Where are you anyways?
Hang on, I know where I'm at. Let's see, I just got to figure out.
I have no idea.
Hang on. We're talking about the national debt.
Right.
And we're talking about how we got to the $33 trillion in national debt. So what is the plan? That's a good question to ask. There are a variety of ways to get the debt under control. It doesn't require paying off the whole $33 trillion or even balancing the budget on an annual basis. The main goal is to shrink the gap between the federal spending and the federal revenue so that the debt as a percentage of GDP stabilizes or declines gradually over time. Most budget analysts agree that a solution will require a combination of spending cuts, tax hikes, and reforms to Social Security and Medicare, which are the costliest programs on the federal books and gobble up a growing share of the revenue.
Where are you? What page?
Anyway, Republicans always say that they want spending cuts as part of the recent revolt amongst the White House Republicans who fired Speaker Kevin McCarthy in early October. And because they were demanding deeper cuts than Congress had even been considering. Even so, those Republicans are targeting fairly small programs and leaving aside big social programs plus defense, which is where most of the money goes. There's no chance of making a dent in the debt problem by shrinking the federal workforce or cutting arts programs.
Biden wants to raise taxes on businesses and the wealthy, but he'd use most of the additional revenue for new programs instead of dealing with the debt. Plus, Biden couldn't get tax hikes passed when Democrats controlled both houses of Congress during his first 2 years in the White House, so neither party has endorsed a credible debt relief plan. The market could force action at some point if rising rates cause enough pain and voters finally realize that a new regime of higher taxes and lower spending is the least bad option. Or a recession could hit and Congress might find it can't pass fiscal stimulus as it normally does without triggering an adverse market reaction. The government now spends more on interest payments than it does on funding the Pentagon. Given the timing of the uptick in interest expense, the fiscal situation may be too large to ignore and become a more important election issue this year. Even if it doesn't become a top 3 election issue in 2024, debt management will likely bedevil whoever wins the White House. They got to fix this.
They do.
I'm sick of it.
Period. I think you're not alone in that, and you're right. But, really, if they stop spending trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars over on new good idea stuff all the time, it's just crazy.
That's what I'm afraid the election is going to be like. Is Biden promising to spend billions?
That's
Trump
what every election.
Trump promising to spend trillions.
You're right.
They need to reel it in.
That's what every election is.
Yeah. So hopefully somebody gets a brain.
All right. Well, let's talk about what a wash sale is in stocks. So selling a losing investment to offset capital gains can be a great way to lower your tax bill, but be careful you don't violate the Internal Revenue Service's wash sale rule. Of course, there's always a rule, right? As investors, anytime you sell a stock or a bond or other holdings at a profit, you realize the capital gains, and you may end up having to pay taxes on that gain. However, Uncle Sam only taxes you.
We have a call. Good morning.
Good morning.
You're on with Randy and Sherri.
Hey, my name is Eb.
Hey,
hello.
Eb. Good morning.
How y'all doing?
We're great.
How are you?
I'm fine. I was going to talk about, a while ago, one of you, I think it was Sherri, said, well, what can they cut? It's like they're running out of things to cut in the government.
Right.
It's just my opinion. One thing, and I'm not going to get into it real deep, but they could cut out things like exchange operations for prisoners and the military.
Don't disagree with you.
And
stupid.
Yeah, and another thing that is, they still give tons of money to, I don't think they give it to PBS, but they give it to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and somehow it gets filtered down to the different people. The guy who did the Muppets, one of the reasons he got rich was because he was on the Muppets, Jim Henson, which was fine, but that was supported by tax dollars, and a lot of it was supported by contributions, but he got rich. Bill Moyers got rich. A lot of people who have been on PBS got rich, so they've got money that filters down. And on the SPLOST this week, I voted no, too. And one of the reasons is because I was in a library one time and I saw something that said a book was bought with the SPLOST dollars, which is okay. But I used to work in libraries, and I knew the state gives the libraries money. And usually the local governments give them money, too.
Right.
And, if you spend $100,000 on stuff a year, you're only going to pay, only a small amount of it really goes to the SPLOST. But then they've got other people, and most people don't spend $100,000 a year on stuff that has sales tax, I don't think. I know I don't. But, so the SPLOST isn't much over a period of time, but I don't know how we always check the things the SPLOST is supposed to go to. I've tried to find some things and I can't find it. I also know that a lot of the things the SPLOST goes to only really benefits a small amount of people. They're wanting to build a new animal shelter thing. And that sounds wonderful, and I love dogs, and I love cats, but I don't know if we need to take care of animals that a lot of people don't want. And I know that sounds cruel in a way, but I don't mean it to. But we spend money on ridiculous things from the top of the government, like you are talking about, all the stuff that Biden wants to do. But we also spend it in the smaller things. Do you know what the amount of the death benefit for a child of someone who dies is? If their parent, has been working and has Social Security.
Is it $255?
I think it's like $350 now.
Well, I'm talking about one that comes every month.
Oh, the Social Security benefit.
Yeah. Okay, well, I had a kid in my family. Her dad had worked. He was about 25 when he died. He committed suicide. And she got money till she was 18.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he only worked 3 or 4 years, but she got money till she was 18. She was about 5 at that time.
I had a friend when I was growing up that his father passed away, and he received money up until he was 18. And yeah.
Yeah, and I know parents, need it, but in this case, they own a chain of restaurants. And so they had money in the family.
So there's no offset.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I don't understand about the government. I have never qualified for any government program that did not cost me money.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, that's one thing I know.
Us neither.
So I just wanted to add all that. I love your show. It's the only show that I try to listen to every week.
Well, thank you very much. And you have some good points there. I appreciate it.
All right.
Yeah, I hate government waste. It just makes me mad. And I'll tell you what I would do if I was president or if I was governor of the state of Georgia, the first thing I would do, which would make a bunch of people really angry, is I would get rid of billboards advertising attorneys suing people for getting in a wreck. And I would get rid of billboards advertising slimy stores.
Yeah.
I mean, like disgusting stuff.
Yeah.
Disgusting pictures. I would eradicate a bunch of stuff, which is why I would never get elected. So I'll
vote for you, sweetie.
Yeah, and cut spending, cut ridiculous, stupid spending.
Before I restart this article that I was on, I'm going to say we blew right through our halftime show, and you've been listening to Your Money with Randy and Sherri Goss, and we are with Rosenberg Financial Group. And if you'd like to call in today and to contribute to the show. The number is 478-742-0940. Rosenberg Financial Group has offices in Macon and Warner Robins, and you can learn more about us by visiting our website, retirerelax.com. We offer complimentary consultations, and setting up an appointment is easy. Just call our office at 478-922-8100. We offer free seminars to the community, so if you're looking for a guest speaker, please give us a call to discuss what topics you'd like for us to cover. All right, so let's go back to the wash sale rule. So we're talking about if you sell a security, and you make a profit on it, and you're going to have capital gains, and the IRS is going to tax you. However, Uncle Sam only taxes you on what your net capital gains is for each calendar year. Any losses you record during the year can be used to offset your gains. For that reason, each year, plenty of investors actively seek out underwater securities to sell, either temporarily or for good, in a strategy known as tax loss harvesting. While the IRS recognizes the strategy as legitimate, there are strict rules you need to follow. And we're coming up to that time of the year where many people start taking a look at that, especially if you know you're going to have a tax bill. The most important of these rules is the wash sale rule. The idea of the wash sale rule is to prevent investors from creating a paper loss by selling an underwater security and immediately repurchasing it in a transaction that's nothing more than a wash. As a result, if you sell an investment and then want to claim the capital loss, you cannot buy that stock back or something very similar to it for at least 30 days. The IRS doesn't want you to manipulate your portfolio to cheat on taxes.
You don't want the IRS looking into your stuff.
That's
I'll tell you right now.
Absolutely. Here's how the wash sale works and how you can avoid violating it. As I said, the wash sale rule requires that investors who want to claim a capital loss from selling an investment refrain from buying that same asset or a substantially identical one within a 30-day period. That 30-day stipulation applies to both the period before and after a security you sell a security at a loss, meaning that you need to be mindful of your trading activity for a total of 61 days, 30 days prior, 30 days after, and then give it an extra day to marinate. The wash sale rule applies to the same types of assets that are eligible for tax loss harvesting, including stocks, bonds, exchange-traded funds, mutual funds, as well as futures and options contracts. It does not matter where you sell your contract or purchase it from. If you sell an asset in a taxable brokerage account and then repurchase it, or a similar asset in a retirement account like a Roth or a traditional IRA, it can trigger a wash sale rule with the IRS. Steer clear of coming back to that investment in any of the accounts until that 30-day window after the sale has passed. If you sell an investment at a loss and it's deemed a wash sale, then you won't be able to deduct the amount of the loss from your capital gains nor from ordinary income. While there's no penalty associated with a wash sale, you will lose the tax benefits you probably had in mind when you sold it in the first place.
So one silver lining, which I don't get this. If you do have a wash sale, your cost basis, or how much you originally paid for the investment, will be adjusted. That's because your loss is added to the cost basis of the new investment, which increases the cost basis. The upshot is that when you eventually go to sell the investment, your capital gain and the potential tax you owe will be correspondingly smaller.
Yeah, it makes sense. You just have to read it a few times. It's probably one of the few times that you don't really get a penalty with the IRS. It's kind of a nice thing, at least. It's especially important to be aware of the specific rules related to wash sales if you take a hands-on approach to tax harvesting. That's because routine actions you have set up for your accounts, like reinvesting dividends, could unintentionally trigger a wash sale.
Say by the phones. You're on with Randy and Sherri. Good morning.
Good morning, you two.
Good
Hello.
morning.
How's everything going?
It's great.
Fantastic.
As usual. It's just amazing. I always hear these kinds of things, and I don't like the huge deficit we're running up either.
Right.
But America decided to put Democrats in charge, and when you put Democrats in charge, there's a whole lot of spending on silly things. Republicans aren't much better, but the Democrats are worse. They like the crazy stuff, like letting convicted murderers get a sex change and that kind of thing, paying for it.
Electric cars. How about electric cars mandated?
Oh, yeah.
That's a whole nother hour of conversation.
That's a fantastic thing.
And subsidizing.
But one of the biggest things that would help deal with the whole situation, economics, every which way, you touched on earlier, and that is bringing down the cost of energy. When energy goes up, inflation goes up. When inflation goes up, the recession starts.
Energy touches everything.
Yes, it does. And it'd be lovely if we could wave a magic wand and we no longer needed oil and we could run our cars on electricity and sunshine and heat our homes
and rainbows
and everything else. That'd be lovely.
And unicorns.
The reality is we got to use fossil fuels. This is the system we have. We need to work with the system we have. When we ignore the system we have or try to pretend that we can do better with something else that isn't going to work as well, this is the problem we get to ourselves.
Well said.
Yeah, right. Well said. Miss America has it right. Let's get the nuclear engines started up again,
Right.
Absolutely. That'd work. And think of it this way. The technologies that are available today are vastly superior to the technologies that were around in the 60s and 70s and whatnot. And they have not built a new nuclear power plant in America in how many decades?
Ages. Yeah.
I'd have to look it up.
Yeah.
One of the things that would really just solve the whole problem is if we just have a budget and stuck to it,
You're talking about politicians again.
I know, but they like to fight. Let them fight over something that means something to everyone else.
I have to live on a budget. You have to live on a budget. What is wrong with this?
It's politicians. That's what's wrong with it. You put politicians in charge and you have trouble. I mean, and again, pointing to the Democrats, you have a roster of people in power in the Democrat Party who seem to be fixed for life. I mean, we saw the Democrat retirement plan when Dianne Feinstein passed away. That's how you get them out of office. It seems that the voters don't want to be responsible enough to say, this is a bad choice. We need to get somebody else in there who will do better.
Here's my concern. I think this next election round is going to be a contest over who can throw the most money at people. That's my concern, is it's not going to drive the debt down. I think they're going to both drive the debt up because it's going to be a competition of who's going to do more for what. I don't know. I might be wrong, but I'm very concerned about all of this.
Well, I know for a fact that if Biden were to get back in, he's just going to be spending.
Oh, good grief!
Yeah, but Trump.
We need another 4 years of the sock.
But Trump's tax cut helped drive up the budget deficit too. So he just needs to. And it's really playing to the people on different sides of the same card. I'm going to cut your taxes or I'm going to give you more. It's like they're really saying the same thing and just doing it in different ways. So they've got to come up with a way to do a balanced budget and stick to it, which is what our Constitution tells us that we need to do.
And you're full of common sense.
A balanced budget. But here's the thing about the taxes: if they go up, they go down. There have been record numbers of tax receipts going into the federal government in the last several years because the economy was going so good. Mm-hmm. If you can keep the economy going good, you can keep the tax receipts going.
Unfortunately, every time they see another dollar come in, they just start drooling over it because they want to spend it on some other crazy program.
You need to replace some politicians so people will be more fiscally responsible. And dare I say it,
term limits.
The old orange man, that too. If the old orange man bad had remained in office, we would not be facing this problem with the energy crisis that we are right now.
I do think that's a true statement.
Totally agree with that.
So.
Well, thanks.
Well, thank you.
Great show. Always enjoy listening when I can. You guys have a great weekend.
You too. It's going to be beautiful out there today.
Bye-bye.
All right, let's finish up this wash sale thing here. I was talking about if you use a automated service, you got to be careful to make sure that does not reinvest the dividends from a stock that you've sold back in a similar stock or the same stock, or you're going to get hit with a wash sale and you're going to invalidate your ability to realize that capital gains offset. Anyway, I would also say it's very important. You have to be vigilant when you're doing this kind of stuff to keep records and rationale, especially if you buy a similar stock. Write down why you chose that stock, especially if it's in the same fund family. Why did you choose that? Because the IRS does not have hard and fast rules on what the definition of a substantially similar stock. It's just crazy they didn't come out.
You just don't want the IRS after you.
So keep good records, document, and I would really recommend that you talk to a financial advisor. And if you do have several financial advisors and you're going to do tax harvesting, maybe even get just one of them to do the tax harvesting for you, because you can kind of set yourself up for failure and you got two people doing different things at different times.
Very good.
And let's see here. Is there anything else on that I'd like to cover?
I don't think so.
No, I think you're right. All right.
So Biden signed sweeping executive order regulating artificial intelligence. He has directed the U.S. government to take a sweeping approach to artificial intelligence regulation to rein in an emerging technology that has sparked both concern and praise. His executive order sets new standards on security and privacy protections with far-reaching impacts on companies. Developers will be directed to put powerful AI models through safety tests and submit results to the government before their public release. The rule, which leverages the U.S. government's position as a top customer for big tech companies, is designed to vet technology with potential national or economic security risks, along with health and safety concerns. It will likely only apply to future systems, not those already on the market, because it's too late for that.
Yeah, Sherri, have you seen the commercials when a person is taking a photo of their friends or their kids and their heads and their lips and they're looking the wrong way? And it's not the perfect photo, and then they mash a button on their phone and suddenly everyone's looking right at the camera all smiling. And have you seen those?
I haven't seen any of this. I don't look at any of it.
And the next thing, the photos are perfect. That is scary to me. There's no limit to what can be done with or faked with this technology. To me, this could take blackmail to a whole new level.
Oh, yeah.
AI is already being used in scamming activities by fake impersonations of friends and relatives, so be very careful out there, folks.
Of what you believe.
Yep.
On the other hand, it could be used for good, wouldn't you say? Law enforcement could use it to predict where crime may occur, for example.
Yeah, it could, but if people are concerned about traffic cameras, then I believe that they will lose their minds if law enforcement starts using AI as part of their surveillance system.
Either way, the executive order creates watermarking standards for AI-generated content, such as audio or images, often referred to as deep fakes.
Yeah, I think that's a good start.
The Commerce Department is being asked to help with the development of measures to counter public confusion about authentic content. The administration's action builds on voluntary commitments to securely deploy AI adopted by more than a dozen companies over the summer at the White House's request in its blueprint for an AI Bill of Rights, a guide for safe development and use. The U.S. set aside $1.6 billion in fiscal 2023 for AI, a number that is expected to increase as the military releases more details about its spending.
Exactly what we were just talking about with the previous caller. Another $1.6 billion. Pretty soon that's going to start adding up to real money, Sherri.
Lawmakers have been holding briefings and meetings with tech representatives, including Meta Platforms' Mark Zuckerberg and OpenAI's Sam Altman, to better understand the technology before drafting legislation. They don't have a clue. This legislation on the surface sounds good. I just don't know. Remember they were grilling Facebook back in the day, and they didn't even understand how Facebook worked.
Right.
And they were all asked, like, they'd never even been on it, but they're trying to grill Zuckerberg. These guys, these are the wrong people to be in charge of this. We need to let's get 10 smart people in a room to figure this thing out and leave Congress out of it.
I agree.
Seriously.
I agree.
I mean, then tell them what needs to happen.
But I do believe that they are using some of these big AI firms, like even Musk. He has his
he'd be a guy to put in charge of this.
But there's a lot of them that are collaborating with them on this.
Well, the legislation on the surface sounds good. I just don't know if it can succeed. It should work well to help to keep law-abiding companies in line, but the scammers and thieves of the world just don't care. So just remember, folks, to always keep your guard up when it comes to an email you receive, calls and letters you receive. Go directly to the company in question and never click on links or call the toll-free number if you don't know where it came from, please.
Yep, agree. Let's talk about something kind of positive here. Last week, the Federal Reserve revealed that last year, the average net worth of American families topped $1 million for the first time, surging 42% from $749,000 in 2019. Of course, that average is skewed by a small number of billionaires and multimillionaires. Inflation meant real wealth didn't increase as much, and pandemic-era stimulus boosted asset values perhaps beyond their fundamental values. Yet, it would be a mistake to therefore conclude that wealth gains are purely a phenomenon of the top 1% flattened by inflation and asset bubbles. First, even after inflation, real average wealth is up about 23% according to the Fed's survey of consumer finances. Second, while the level of median wealth was much lower than the average, it actually rose more than the average between 2019 and 2022 by 37% adjusted for inflation to 193,000. That means wealth inequality actually narrowed, and that's good news. Third, and perhaps most noteworthy, there are really a lot of true millionaires. About 16 million American families, or just about 12%, have a wealth exceeding $1 million, up from 9.8 million families in 2019.
But here's what they don't know. A lot of people have money that they can't see.
That's right.
I don't know what they're looking at here, but you have people who have gold, silver, bonds, stock certificates. I don't know what they're looking at to come up with these numbers.
I'd like to know that too. But anyway.
So who are these many millionaires? They generally earn between $150,000 and $250,000 a year. They wouldn't typically be considered rich but upper middle class, and this depends to some extent on where they live. The same house is worth more in some parts of the country. A small home in L.A. and San Francisco, where a small home is 1,800 square feet and could run up to $1 million, same house here would cost you about $200,000. Rather than being left behind, they have in fact seen bigger wealth gains over the past 3 years than the top 10% of families. The biggest wealth gains between 2019 and 2022 were among the approximately 13 million families in the 80th, blah, blah, blah. Nobody wants to hear this. To be sure, for many American families, the surge in prices since the onset of the pandemic means that wealth doesn't feel as good as it sounds. Nonetheless, as these figures show, the increase in net worth for these families has far outpaced inflation.
Yeah, and over 90% of these families report owning stocks either directly or through retirement accounts, and 87% own their home. They benefited extraordinarily from the low interest rates, cutting debt payments as a share of their incomes from about 19% to 12.9% in the last reading. According to these numbers, the economy is creating a growing number of upper middle class. Many people got there by pursuing college degrees and steadily building retirement accounts and purchasing homes. For the most part, they became wealthy slowly, and they were well positioned when pandemic-era stimulus programs boosted asset values. Many people whose wealth would define them as poor can expect one day to be rich. Many, will be. For example, only 1% of families under 35 are millionaires, but that rises with age. By 55 to 64, 21% of families are millionaires, and this trend is particularly pronounced amongst college graduates, of whom 45% were millionaires between 55 and 64.
That's awesome.
That is. Make no mistake, though, there's still poverty and economic struggle in the U.S., and many families have little or no wealth and limited prospect of accumulating any. And yet the idea that only the 1% are getting rich is at odds with these numbers.
So I'm seeing young people that are coming to us for consultations that want to start saving more because they're already maxing out their 401ks. And we have a couple of cases over the last couple of months where they have so much money coming in, they're going to start funding investment accounts with us because they just have so much coming in and it's got to go somewhere for their future. And these are people that are already paying for private school for their kids, but they've got incredible jobs, they own businesses, and they're just making a lot of money.
And we've seen a lot of really great enterprising young people that are buying rental houses, getting that extra stream of income.
That's another thing.
They're setting really lofty goals for themselves, and they're cutting back on their expenses so they can make those dreams a reality. That's what it's all about.
And I've seen more millionaires in the last 2 weeks than I've seen in the last 6 months.
Well, I'll say kudos to these people. We'd like to see people set those lofty goals and work towards them. And as we've pointed out, with some exceptions, what you spend from your income is what can set you apart. You must spend less than what you make. You must put money into an emergency fund and then save and invest. You need to start small if you need to. The decisions that you make today with regards to your money could have a profound effect on your future you.
Big time.
Anyway,
track your spending.
That's right. Anyway, we're at the end of our show, and thanks for listening to Your Money, produced by Rosenberg Financial Group. As financial advisors, the main thing that we do is provide retirement planning advice and manage our clients' investment accounts. And if you're looking for a financial advisor, please contact our office to set up your complimentary consultation. Our office number is 478-922-8100, and you can learn more about us by visiting our website, retirerelax.com. If you have questions or topics you'd like us to cover in enjoyed next week's broadcast, email me at randy@rfmoney.com, and we look forward to connecting with you next week. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Yay.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through Osaic Wealth Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC. Osaic Wealth is separately owned, and other entities and or marketing names, products, and services referenced here are independent of Osaic Wealth.